All right, this is a video for geometry for the Chapter 9 test, which is assignment 13. So to get to, or to do this, and if you're watching this video, you're already on Moodle on this video, so I'm going to scroll down here to where we're going to be. This is what you see, assignment 1, 2, 3, so on. We're going to go down to assignment 13. Which is actually going to be, it'll be above that picture. By then I'll move it, but it's going to look like this. This is going to be the basic idea. So assignment 13. I'm going to go through, what I'm going to go through on this video is how to get to the test at the first part of the video. Then the second part will be reviewing Chapter 9, what's on the test. So you watch it and then you can know what's going to be on the test and what to do about the test. This video will be the very first thing you see. Underneath this it'll say, it's got all the assignment 13, watch the video below before attempting the Chapter 9 test. A copy of the test is below. Print off the test or just do it on a separate sheet of paper. So if you look, the very first thing you see that says challenge problems underneath that. Then you see the video. That's this video that you're watching now. Then it's got the Chapter 9 test right after that. So you can either print off a copy of it or whatever. But on that Chapter 9 test, same as the Chapter 8 test that we did, all questions are multiple choice. Answers are on Moodle. Go to the Chapter 9 test answers used 19-20. You'll notice that is right below the test. Chapter 9 test answers used 19-20. You're going to do the test, and they're all multiple choice, so then you're going to go on Moodle and just put in your answers. So if you have a copy of the test printed off and you go to Moodle and you're working the test out on one side, then you're just transferring your answers right into Moodle. So again, even though the multiple choice answers aren't on the test itself, you got choices for your answers on Moodle, on this third thing down underneath this, under the video. Then you got the Chapter 9 test. Then you got the Chapter 9 test answers. You click on that and it takes you to Moodle, and it'll say question 1, and it'll have 4 answers, A, B, C, and D. And you pick one. If you have any questions about that, please make sure you let me know. I'll try to help you through it. It might be easier to just call my cell phone number and I'll explain how to get to it. Do not send me a picture of the test. I do not need a picture of the test. All the answers are going to be inserted right in Moodle, so it's all going to get graded right there on Moodle. The other thing, the challenge problems is down below the answers on the test. So the challenge problems are directly below that, which is the fourth thing down under this assignment 13. And then the last thing below the challenge problems is the set of notes that I'm getting ready to go over. That's the Chapter 9 review. So again, you click on this. The first thing right here, it pulls up. It pulls up the test video, which I don't have on there right now because I'm doing the video right now. Then the second thing right here, you click on it and it pulls up the actual test and it tells you the questions. So you're just going to go down through, you're going to do the questions. Notice no answers on here because you're just going to transfer your answers into Moodle. It's got the directions right there. The third thing is the Chapter 9 test answers. And it says quiz, I know, but it's a test. Notice you're allowed 2 attempts. So make sure that you're only allowed 2 attempts. Make sure you take your time and don't just guess answers. You go in there, if you just hit attempt quiz now, it'll say question 1, and it's got the 4 answers. You answer each question, so on, so on. I'm going to go back, you can figure that out. Then the challenge problems, go in here, and these are the wrong challenge problems, but this is just another paper that I stuck in here for now, but this is assignment 12. It'll pull up challenge problems there, not what I have, and then it'll have these notes. Open them up with Microsoft PowerPoint, and it'll have the notes for the Chapter 9 review. And now I don't know how to get out of this. Oops. All right, so that's all that stuff. Hopefully that explains all that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the actual Chapter 9 review. It'll be pretty quick. Let's see here. Is this the right one? All right, so Chapter 9 review, things are going to be on the Chapter 9 test, be able to use Pythagorean's theorem. All right, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember that most everything that we did this chapter dealt with right triangles. I think just everything that we did dealt with it. Remember with Pythagorean's theorem, these two, A and B, are the legs. Label your triangle leg or hypotenuse, those are legs. And the C always has to be the hypotenuse, which is the longest side. So be able to figure out a missing side, find a missing side given 2 other sides. Some of the things with the Pythagorean theorem, the Pythagorean triples, you know, if you can use those, it makes things easier a lot of times. So if you're given a right triangle and you know one leg is 3 and you know the hypotenuse is 5, then we can use this 3, 4, 5 Pythagorean triple and know that this other leg here has to be 4. And also, along those same lines, it could be like double or triple or times 10 or whatever for those. So if we're given a right triangle and it has a side that's 70, one leg that's 70, another leg that's 240. Well, this fits in that 7, 24, 25 Pythagorean triple. And all we're doing is times them by 10. We're taking 7 times 10, 24 times 10. And then that means the hypotenuse here has to be 25 times 10, which is 250. If you don't remember those, you can still use Pythagorean's theorem to find it, but sometimes it's helpful and it makes everything go a little quicker. Be able to use the special right triangles. That was the 45, 45, 90 right triangles and the 30, 60, 90 right triangles. On the 45, 45, 90, side across from the 145 degree angle is labeled L or X. On this video I put L's because a lot of the problems had X's in them. So if we label it with L, and also before I was using the lowercase cursive L, I can't get that lowercase cursive L on here, so I just used a capital L. Side across from the other 45 degree angle, you gotta label these triangles every single time. All this stuff that we did this whole chapter, label the triangles. That's a main thing. Is also L. Those two are going to be the same every time. Side across from the right angle, which is the hypotenuse, is going to be labeled L times the square root of 2. So if they told us that this side over here was 7, then we know L has to equal 7. We just set up that equation. And then wherever we see L, we stick in 7. So that means this side has to be 7. This side over here, we stick in 7 right there. and that's going to tell us that that side is 7 times the square root of 2. Remember that they don't have to tell you the whole thing, that they could just tell you that you got a 90-degree angle and this angle is 45, and you should be able to figure out that that other angle is 45, so this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. You could also use the trig stuff to find some of these. The bad thing with that is if I put the answer as a radical and you're using the trig, it's going to give you a decimal answer. You gotta, if it's multiple choice, then you gotta know what it matches up to. The other thing that goes along with this, a square. If we have a square, if we know all 4 of these sides are the same, and we know that it has 4 right angles in it, and we draw in a diagonal, we know that each of these triangles is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if they tell us one of the sides of the square, maybe 10, then we automatically know that this side over here, that's that L radical 2, L is going to equal 10, and that means this diagonal has to be 10 times the square root of 2. And then we also did the problems where they told us the diagonal, maybe they told you the diagonal was 16 times the square root of 2, and if this was a square, all these sides were congruent, then you know that L is right there, so that means each side of the square has to be 16. 30, 60, 90 triangle. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, remember it gets labeled, the side across from the 30-degree angle is L, or X, whichever one you want to use. Side across from the 60-degree angle is L times the square root of 3, and the side across from the right angle is always labeled 2 times L. Again, if you do X's, if we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, if you know this angle's 30, that's a right angle, then you know that one has to be 60, and you go to label it, and you label it X. Side across from the right angle is 2X, and the side across from the 60-degree angle would be X times the square root of 3. It's the same thing, it just depends on if you already have an X in the problem, then you don't want to throw other X's in there because it gets confusing. Know when you have an equilateral triangle. If I draw this triangle and I tell you it's equilateral, you know all the angles are 60 degrees. And if that's the case and we draw in an altitude, remember an altitude goes from a vertex to the opposite side that forms a right angle, then we know each of these 2 triangles that we formed are 30, 60, 90 triangles. And we could use all this information that we've just talked about there. Number 4, be able to use a calculator to find trig ratios and find right angles. Remember on your calculators, you're punching in, if it just says like the sine of 32-degree angle, then you just punch in sine 32, hit equals, and it's going to tell you that. But you got to make sure your calculator is set up correctly. If we're trying to find an angle, then that's when you hit the second or the shift button on your calculator. And you hit, like, let's say there, if we're trying to find theta, ignore that, and we know that it's the sine, so it's the opposite leg over the hypotenuse, so it might be something like 5 over 17 or something. Then we hit second or shift, then sine, then punch in 5 divided by 17, hit equals, and then it's going to tell us the angle, whether it's theta, angle A, whatever X, whatever it is. Number 5, use the trig stuff to find missing sides or angles of triangles. So be able to use the trig stuff. Remember, that's the SOHCAHTOA. We have to be able to use SOHCAHTOA. We have to use SOHCAHTOA up here for this stuff too. SOHCA, remember the SO part, sine means opposite over hypotenuse. C stands for cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. T stands for tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. Be able to use those. When you go to set up your equation, it's always going to be your trig name. So tangent maybe, then your angle, 38 degrees, then equals, and then your fraction. Something like x over 72 or whatever it comes out to be. But you set up that equation, then you got to be able to solve those. Diagonal to square, we already talked about that. Altitude and equilateral triangle, that was with the 30, 60, 90 triangle, we talked about that. Be able to deal with the radicals. Don't just change them all to decimals, because some of the answers on the test are in radical form. So be able to deal with them. Number 11, be able to solve all the word problems that we did. That means you probably have to draw a picture. Make sure you remember, if they talk about a ladder leaning up against the wall, well, you draw the wall, and the ladder's got to be leaning up against the wall. You don't use a ladder, you don't draw the wall, and then the ladder standing straight up out here. That's not how ladders work. So make sure that your picture makes sense. And then the main part of the test is what you're going to be doing the most on the test is finding missing parts of the triangles, either using Pythagorean theorem or using the trig, whatever it is. So that's everything that's going to be on this Chapter 9 test. Hopefully that all makes sense, and good luck on the test.